Her team has put together nearly 400 elegant and amazing events through the years, which is why we are so happy to have Melanie Murphy with us from By Invitation Only Events Planning and Design. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You have an unbelievable history and quite a fabulous reputation, which is again why we're so happy to have you not only on this episode, but moving forward in what we're going to call Tie the Knot tips. You do like to share the love, as we say, which is your knowledge. And we are really happy to have you tell a little bit about your story of your beginnings, because you were actually a geology major.
I am a geologist by education, that is correct.
And you did not always work in events planning, but you did have an unusual circumstance which sparked your career. Tell us about it.
I did. It was honestly by accident. I was helping my sister who was photographing a wedding for a friend of hers, and there was not a planner or coordinator on site. And some things started to go a little south, I guess you could say. So I stepped in just trying to keep it organized and on track, and you know, we want a seamless event for anything that we do. So I just sort of picked up a few pieces helping with this event, and I had one woman tell me, "You've missed your calling." And I said, not quite sure about that, but I gave it some thought. I did a lot of research. I did educate myself, asked around to a lot of different vendors and fellow professionals, and then decided to pick it up one day because I've always loved weddings. This has been something that I've always appreciated greatly. And I started slow, and it really took off from there.
When you say it really took off, you're being modest. Tell us about your first 3 years and the growth that you had, because it was fascinating to me.
We started in August, mid-year, and I think I did 8 weddings my last 6 months of the year. And then after that, the next year, we brought in, I think, 14 or 15 weddings by our second year. And by our third year, we were pushing right at 40 some odd events, I guess you could say.
Wow. So obviously, at that point, you needed some help. Tell us how your team has grown, because it's not just you.
No, it is not just me. And I have to say, I cannot do this without the absolutely amazing team that we have on board. We do have 2 other planners that work at By Invitation Only that are super talented. And then we have about 22 other people that are on staff that we call on to help us create these amazing events.
Well, speaking of the amazing events, elegance and sophistication are words that many people use to describe the variety of the things that you put together. But you really like to get creative, and what I think is really interesting is where you find your inspiration. You ride for people who are tuning in.
I am an equestrian, that is correct.
And so you say that some of your best moments come to you while you're riding. Tell us about that.
That is what I call my out. I think we all have outs in business, especially when you own your own business. But I go to the farm, which is set in beautiful countryside, and I get out there, and when I'm by myself, it's so quiet, and I look around me. I take in what's around me and try to bring that to the table when it comes to design for some elements. Obviously, every event is different, so it does require me looking around all over the place. But when I'm out there, everything comes out of my brain that I may have in an office or in town, and I get out there and I just start thinking about things. I literally carry a phone around to record ideas as I go, just in case I have a great inspiration while I'm out there and go, oh, I've got to remember this.
Absolutely. It's hard to remember all those things, which is another fun fact about you. You like to keep lists and for lists of lists. Tell us about that.
I'm a little OCD on the list topic. I do have lists of lists. I am super organized on that part of it because I really want to make sure no detail is missed. So I have different lists for different elements of the event itself, and then I have a list to make sure that we brought all the lists to cover all the elements that are involved.
Well, I'm sure that that helps with your team to put things together, because obviously there's no turning back. These events are once in a lifetime for many people.
Exactly. So I make sure, basically the way I joke about my list, but it truly is any one of my team can pick up those lists and put it together knowing exactly what has to happen if for some unfortunate reason I could not be there at that moment when something needed to happen.
Tell us a little bit about the secrets to your success. Obviously being organized is key, but you seem to have an attention for detail like no other. I'm sure your staff would probably agree.
They do agree with that one. They find it hilarious at some of the things that I adjust and pay attention to, from the straightness of a linen, that's a big pet peeve if something's just a little off, to lining up seams on linens on tables. It's odd quirks, but it's just one of those things that I obsess about, stuff being very polished, finished, and complete. That's how it's complete.
And often the joke is people don't notice it unless it isn't together, but your work that goes on behind the scenes is really limitless. For instance, if there's something amiss in the bathroom, we are not above the team taking attention to that.
This is true. I do joke about that too, how important it is that all the vendors that come together work together as a monster team. It takes all of them. Making sure that every little detail, from if it's taking out the trash or cleaning off a table or maybe even tidying up a restroom, we've done it because that's important too.
You actually found, you said, some great inspiration in Gone with the Wind, the classic. Would you like to do an event of that era?
Yeah, I am a big Gone with the Wind fan. That's just something I've always had an interest in and collected pieces from, but it's that elegance, it's that sophistication, and it's that attention to detail in that time period that we had that sometimes you don't see carried over always, but it kind of stays in the back of my mind of creating something very, I don't want to say Southern because it's not always Southern anchored, I guess, but truly just those details that are important.
One of the things I didn't really think about is the great variety you get to see and work with. For instance, you could be working on a Jewish wedding with a huppah, which is a flowery sort of overhang, to a totally different, perhaps Indian-themed wedding. Have you done it all to date?
We have. We have been very fortunate to have been involved in some very unique and different customs and traditions. Sometimes they educate us with some of the traditions that come about. We had a wedding recently that one of the bride had some ties to Bulgaria and that sort of thing. So there's some beautiful traditions that came about that we had the honor of helping her put together. But we do all types, we're there to make sure that what you want, what you have in your history and your wishes, I guess, come to life exactly as you expect them to.
It must be an honor to be able to be part of making those memories. What do you find most rewarding?
The satisfaction of when I have a couple that comes into a space that we've helped them create, and the emotion that they experience, and they look at me with tears and say, "This is more than I had ever expected it to be." And I cry with them.
Well,
I do.
It is obviously emotional, moving into a new phase of life. And it's also pretty amazing that you can run the spectrum for size of events. In fact, you're coming up on a very large event.
We are coming up on our largest to date. It is a corporate event, but it's a lot of work. Seeing 10,000 people over 3 days is going to be an experience, but we are so excited about it. But then again, we've done weddings for 15 people, and it's been so moving and emotional, and it's so satisfying.
I think that viewers will enjoy, as you return to the program, seeing some of the amazing photos. You were telling us a little bit about a wedding earlier where you had a kayak suspended, and it wasn't just suspended, there was something special inside of it.
It was. This bride, she was a kayaker herself, and then her father also enjoyed this hobby, and he had an old canoe that said, how can we incorporate, because this is her love. And so we literally got in a space and we stood there and we're like, and of course, I'm always one of these that looks up. Let's look up, let's put it up here. Let's make this a big focal point. So we did hang the canoe over as an entry piece with tons of floral design spilling out of it.
Amazing.
It was exquisite. And there was so many people that would come in and go, oh. But that was her. And that's what we wanted to have there.
And that is the wow factor that you often bring with your team. It has been so much fun having you for the first time, Melanie, but the great news is you'll be back. In fact, if you're just tuning in, Melanie Murphy will be back with Tie the Knot tips. And coming up in just a moment, we're back outside riding Harleys for a great cause.